was an Elvira one.
Ah, nice.
So they had the Elvira one as well, but it was awesome. It was really,
I
really
love
cool.
Elvira.
Really, really cool.
Yeah, Father's Day. My daughter, my wife and daughter gave me a voucher for a local bar near us, which is it's like a country western bar a bit, and it's like they only serve like Jack Daniels and like really hard, like rums and like certain percent alcohols, and it's like a country rebels bar kind of thing. Like they only play hard rock and stuff like that.
Nice.
And me and my dad went there. And then we met up with everyone else for a meal tonight about 6 o'clock. We went out like 2 hours earlier, and I can't lie, on that voucher I was absolutely battered. And I turned up at 6 o'clock to the Indian restaurant like not being able to see. And I was sat there going, I've got a podcast to do at 9:30. I need to eat food. See, I've been sat for the past 2 hours like scranning.
I haven't drunk for so long. I forgot what a hangover is even like. I forgot what it was even like to be blagged.
Mate, I've managed to get a hangover within 2 hours because I was that panicking that I'm like, I've got a podcast to do. I've been scranning food and like trying to sober up for the past 2 hours.
Doing like a full-on Rocky and just eating like drinking. But listen, as it is Father's Day and as we are talking about Star Wars, I've got a little gift to bring to the show. So
hashtag I am your Father's Day.
Hashtag I am your Father's Day. As we're talking about Star Wars, surely there's one person that we need to bring into this mix. There really is. There's one person that we need to bring back just for this show.
This is the weirdest segue to get Ryan back ever. We call him
Here he is. He's Ryan.
Whoa,
a massive beard. He's a massive beard. What happened? Like, where have you been in a cave since leaving the show?
Yeah, do you know what? It's really annoying. I can only come out when I'm summoned by Jake and Ash, and because they haven't summoned me for so long, I've just been stuck growing this beard. But actually, the good thing about it is now that I've been summoned, thankfully I can shave. Oh, that's so much better.
Who's that guy?
You needed a ball on Island then with that beard.
Wow. Look at
I was honestly one step away from shouting Wilson, but what's up, mother flippers?
Lots of love for Ryan in the comments. People going, Ryan, JB1, nice to see the homies back together. Here we are. Even though we're all quite clean shaven, like our beards aren't out of control, and you've just gone full baby face.
Full baby face.
Yeah, I haven't been clean shaven for about 3 years. So I actually got the beard because my beard and find it so destabilizing. I was like, I went on Amazon and bought a fake beard, so I was like, just to acclimatize her a little bit.
Like when you see children that have never seen their parents without without facial hair. Ryan, like you're really Ryan circa kind of 2003 there. Like that's impressive.
Jake's probably one of the few people that recognize me looking like this. There aren't probably a handful of people I still sort of know very well that recognize me completely clean shaven.
You know what,
Ryan?
Ryan?
Been proven this week.
The only way you could have topped that and really gone back to Ryan circa 2003 is if you'd put that wig on your head and left the bottom here.
Have I done
that? Right, started with there we go. There's Ryan circa 2000. You look like the reject from Blink 182. It's just the guy that didn't make.
No, I'm the already fallen out boy.
Did you see the click and said, Ryan, you look 10 years younger. Look at that, 10 years younger.
Did you see anything on TikTok this week about Blink 182 with all the millennials calling them Blink 182 and all of us like coming out the woodwork going, no, it's Blink 182. Stop calling them that. All the millennials calling them Blink 182. Like, no, that's not right.
That's what I just called them, wasn't it?
It's Blink 182. They've always been Blink 182. I think so.
Oh, I'm gonna have to rewatch now. Did I just mix it up? Been hanging out.
Did say that then? For shame. Shame.
Yeah, definitely. But no, Ryan, it's good to have you here. We're talking Star Wars this week, so we thought, why not? We'll get Ryan on.
Oh, you know, I'm not really a Star Wars fan, so I'm probably gonna jump off if that's all right.
You know what? Before we get into the real Star Wars stuff, because we haven't spoken to you on air for a while, what are you making at the HasLab?
Oh, the cantina.
Yeah,
mate, I'm really tempted. I love it. I think it's brilliant. Yeah.
What about the
Obviously,
deluxe package where you can like double it up?
now you see the thing is about that, right? I know a lot of people are kind of like so about that, but I think that's actually fairly sensible. Rather than forcing you to buy the whole thing,
Yeah.
it's like because I know some people that will literally want to have it face out, like on that shelf, like just that half. But I know people like me that would probably go like, actually, I could use those walls in another way, and a bit similar how they've done that video recently where they're showing different display options.
Yeah.
Like I think having the options actually better, and I hope we see that in future HasLabs, not just for Star Wars, but for all of the different HasLabs, because I think having optionals also makes it potentially a little bit more affordable for someone if you don't maybe get stuff you don't think is necessary for you. I think those potential options really open up accessibility to it. But yeah, because I mean, some people will get the basic package and go, "Why the hell do I need to close it in?" But you know, like I said, it just gives the options. But I actually think as a HasLab, I think it's brilliant. I reckon they delayed it a little while just to get some of the thinking behind maybe the accessories and what figures they were including. I think that was the reason for the delay. But also, I'm a big fan of. I would rather someone not rush something out if they think we need another week or two to get it ready.
Yeah.
So,
I must
but
admit,
I
I
just
did. I
think,
was a
yeah,
big fan of that video they did recently, the stream they did where they showed you like the shelf display options. I thought that was very clever, very, very clever marketing. Because
we
when
need
I
more
first
stuff
saw
like
it,
that.
well, I was just saying before you came on, I've got a 1/4 Iron Man, like the suit up gantry. It's absolutely stunning.
Yeah.
But it's huge and it takes up like the space of 4 cubes in these things. And obviously, I can't put it there because there's glass in between. So I need to find somewhere to display it. But it's massive. And the first thing I thought with that cantina is I was like, it's going to be huge. I remember seeing the Ghost at MCM and just thinking that thing is huge. And the same for the cantina. But seeing it that you can actually kind of decompart it, if that's the right word, and kind of modularize it. There we go, and put it on the shelves in particular ways. And like, so you've got the outside, the inside, the entrance. I thought that was very clever, very, very clever. I thought, yeah, I'm kind of. It's not for me, but I'm a fan of it. I'm a supporter of it without a doubt.
I agree, and I think we're also running out of big vehicles that would be mass appeal. I can only think of maybe 2 at a very strong push, 3 maybe vehicles that would be big enough that would be a wide enough appeal, and that is very much like Sandcrawler, a AT-AT to scale maybe, you know, but that would be like phenomenally huge because the legs, you know. But I think a playset is actually a very sensible thing. I can see this being a tester for maybe potentially like a Death Star scenario set up in the future as well, with like different bits. And I've got a feeling you guys have probably already said all this, because if I know you two, you've probably had the exact same thoughts I have, because I know we all think very similar on these things. So I think this is the playset thing is quite a bit of future. And also what I really like is to hear, so we have a chat, the 3 of us, still called the Geek Week, so I'm never really far away from the scene, talking about the Ghostbusters. And the first thing I thought about when they did the 4 O-rings and the obviously makes with the Ecto 1, which I know Jake's got already, was about what the HasLab for Ghostbusters would be. And I was like, I reckon that'd be the Firehouse. And I went on the chat with these 2, and straight away both of them were, yeah, we both thought it was the Firehouse.
Yeah. Well, we were saying just
investing.
before you came on that because of the marketing that's behind their HasLab, I think it's just they've got the mold for this. I think it's just going to be a scaled up version of this now, which I think is really disappointing. It would have been really good to have a cantina. But talking about like modulars and stuff, because I've got this nice 3D printed Stay Puff, and now I've got 3 3/4. Look at this! Look! It's to scale. It's to scale.
Where'd you get that?
Got it off a good friend of mine, GLP 3D.
I want it.
We kind of came up with a design together. So I said I wanted a Stay Puft Marshmallow Man that I could display on the shelf. Hence why he's got a flat back and a flat bottom, so I can put him flat up against the shelf. Maybe
I do love it. I do love that, but you do need the one with the face where he's like the more angry faced one where they're shooting him.
Yeah, no, see, I went for classic Stay Puft.
Yeah,
but then put a bit
without my glasses and my beard now, I'm not far away from that.
Oh, it's Ryan. But yeah, but I thought, so I did this for my Plasma series figures, so I didn't want to do it too big. And I just thought I could have him displayed, have the kind of rooftop, have the Plasma series figures on top. But now I've got the 3 3/4 inch line. Is actually much more to scale when you look at them side by side. So this with the 3 3/4 inch, he is going to look absolutely phenomenal. So if we do get a Firehouse HasLab and one ends up in my collection somehow, I got the Stay Puft already.
Here's
and
another thing though. Some food for thought about like if it's not the HasLab, and now that we've got the Plasma series, do you know what? It's going to be really good, which you can now pick up for quite a reasonable price. The Playmobil Firehouse. Playmobil actually scales really well with 3 3/4 inch. So I use a lot of Playmobil stuff when I'm creating play sets for my Star Wars stuff. And that Playmobil Firehouse, if Hasbro don't make one, you can still get that Firehouse, which is a really good and got so many accessories. You can get it for such a good price, and even the Slimer I think would fit in well enough with the series that I'm actually tempted to try and pick one up because I worry that maybe if it's the HasLab isn't a ghost firehouse, then everyone else might have the same idea. Especially now that I've decided to say it on the Geek Week where everyone's watching it and everyone's going to go, "That's a great idea," and I've just screwed myself over royally. You're welcome.
Like, you know what? I've got it. All my kids have got it, and I was thinking
house.
exactly the same. I was like, you know what? I even
you
saw
got
on
kids.
Facebook.
I don't have the excuse to buy toys. When I go into a shop and buy toys, they know. They look at me and they go,
Well, yeah, it was my eldest son's birthday when they all came out, and he was probably about 7 or 8 at the time. And I was like, "Oh, right, Playmobil Ghostbusters. We're gonna have to get every single set." So that's what all he got that birthday was like all Ghostbuster related.
doesn't even like Ghostbusters.
No, he'd never even seen it. I was like, "This is really cool. This is really good." But no, it's still
Yeah, I remember when they came out, and even I remember being. It was a Toys R Us as well before Toys R Us shut, and I remember saying like these are cheaper than some of the toy range stuff. I was collecting heavily on the Black Series at that point, and I remember saying stuff like, "This is cheaper than some of the Black Series toys," and I was able to get like I was able to get the Ecto-1, the Firehouse, the 2 sets that also came out, and I think the whole shebang came to like 150 quid for everything. If I remember rightly, it wasn't that much.
No, it was really reasonably priced. I did have the Ecto-1. I did sell it in the end because I got the real Ghostbusters re-release one.
Yeah,
really cheap. And I would like, and I'm still going to keep that with I'm going to want to get a set of real Ghostbusters to go with that as its own little display. But then with the O-ring Ghostbusters we're coming out now, I'm like, I think I'm going to have to get me that Firehouse, the dogs, and the Slimer that goes with it. And I'm also going to need to get the details of the guy because I'm going to need me one of those Stay Puffs.
That's all right, mate. I'll hook you up. But yeah, it was a design that I came up with him, and I was just kind of like, this is how I want it. This is what I want to be able to do to it. And we kind of went back and forth a little bit, but yeah. But no, I was saying as well about the Ecto-1. The Ecto-1 for Playmobil, you can pick up for £35, and that's got lights and sounds, and it's a very similar build to the 3 3/4 inch one, which retails at like £60-65 without the lights and sounds. So yeah, Ash is lost in football. Who's
someone needs to tell Serbia that is not how you tackle. Come on, people. That was just a full-on assault.
What's the score now? Because I left the football to come on this. So it was 1-0 when I left.
We literally got like 4 seconds to go. It's still 0-1 to us. We've won 1-0. We've won.
That's
there you go.
Such a way of saying it. 0-1 to us.
0-1.
It's officially.
The Geek Week has now become sport related.
It's officially over. Right. It's over.
Welcome to the
done.
Sport Week in Review.
Oh. Who would have known? I
can turn off the spot now. It's 0-1 to us. We won.
Amazing.
Scotland's coming over. We've still got a dream.
That deserves an applause, apparently.
Hang on, I'm just having a quick look at something.
Yeah, Scotland are coming home, but we've still got a dream. Apparently, we're still in it for a few weeks.
Wait for it to climb the top of the charts and then dash all the way back down again.
I loved more than anything the other night, by the way. I know we don't talk sport on here, but I loved more than anything on the planet when it was the commentators for Scotland, and they said they've not been in a major competition since 1995 on the Euro Cup or something, and then it was like, we've got big dreams for Scotland, and it was 5-0. Like, oh, Scotland, and they're coming.
My Scottish neighbour looked absolutely dire the next day. He was not happy.
It'll all be fun and games until Thursday, and then we'll be home as well. Don't worry. We're only a few days behind them.
More of a lag.
You know what? I'm just having a look now, and you can pick up the Firehouse still, the Playmobil Firehouse for relatively cheap. You can get a brand new one for like under £100.
Yeah, I love when it came out. I think it was about 80 quid when about 70, 80 quid when it first came out. So it's that if it's still under £100, then it's held.
Yeah,
it's kind of kept its value just quite well.
I actually saw on one of the one of the like Facebook groups, there was a Smith somewhere, and they were selling them for like £18.
Ooh,
Like,
18.
I think it was an error, but yeah, they
Damn.
were selling them for like 17.99. So people obviously picked up a load. There are lots of people in the chat chatting away. Joby one, let's go Super Sports Bar, Super Sports Ball. There we go. We could that's the Geek Week this week.
I'd love to monitor the chat now and just see how many people pile in the next like 10 minutes, because obviously the football's just ended.
Yeah, numbers are creeping up. I can see it here.
There you go.
Let's talk Star Wars. Because we've
Yeah.
got, we're into the show already.
I wanted to ask Ryan though, but just quickly, what are your plans with all 120 cups for your bar?
So I have designed a alien that has 118 arms. The only problem is its scale, because it turns out it is 6 feet tall, but it can hold all 100. Do you know what? Joking aside, though, right? And everyone's joking about the cups. However, would you not be more pissed off if you actually didn't have enough cups?
Yeah.
I would rather have a pot full of cups to the side. And actually, to prove this point, Hasbro aren't the first people to do cups. My good friend Graham at the Next 17 did cup accessories with his vintage figures, and I have bought loads of them, and all my vintage figures have these little cups.
So
your 118 cups or whatever is actually going to be 252 cups.
Yeah, because I'm like, Hasbro said they're going like 100 and whatever cups. I'm like, please, I'm the king of cups.
I love more than anything that obviously I got the Navarro Cantina years ago, or like the other year, and that had like 2 cups or whatever stupid in it, like 2 or 3 of these little cylinder cups. And I'm like, we needed more than that. And then Hasbro like, hold my cup, hold my cup, literally. Here's 120 cups. Like, that's just insane.
Yeah.
But yeah,
so let's talk Acolyte, and then let's talk into our top 10, because we're talking Acolyte and top 10. 3 episodes of Acolyte so far. Internet, as always, with all of this kind of new media, is very divided. There's lots of people complaining. But you know what? I'm quite enjoying it. I'm not gonna lie. I quite enjoy it. And the reason being, for me, Star Wars growing up was all about fancy light swords. Do you know what I mean? It was like, oh, that's the franchise with the light swords. Like, you know what I mean? That's really cool. And in modern Star Wars spin-offs and expansions, there's been less about the Jedi, because obviously the Jedi kind of follow that Skywalker saga story. So to actually take it loads of years before and give us a different version of the Jedi, different Jedis that aren't tied to anyone, was quite refreshing. And yeah, I'm quite enjoying it. For what it is, I'm quite enjoying it.
Give him a chance. Yoda's coming.
Oh,
young Yoda without the walking stick is like a few episodes away. I'm telling you.
There will be a cameo from someone somehow.
But do you not for me? Do you not think that they sold this series on the trailers a little bit, using Carrie-Anne Moss a little bit heavily, to then kill her off within the first 5 seconds of the program?
But it's
going to be flashback based.
Yeah,
that seems like the standard of television these days. Like, we'll put this person in it and then we'll murder them within 10 seconds.
But it's classic Scream marketing, isn't it? It's like you get your biggest name and then you create a shock factor with that big name right at the beginning.
Darth Ray and Rise of Skywalker trailer. Everyone thought that was going to be a big thing, and it was not a dream. I don't want to say a dream, a vision.
A vision, yeah. But it's classic kind of marketing. She was the big name. She was the big pull. But I think I can never say his name correctly, but the geezer from Squid Games, the one who like learned how to speak English in like 4 months because of this role. Like, I think his character is sold his character, isn't it? I think he's brilliant.
Yeah.
I really love him. I think he's so, and you can see that there's a bit of conflict there. But what I really like about it is that the Sith like aren't a thing. You know what I mean? They're not. There isn't the Jedi's versus the Sith, but you can see those cracks kind of come in, and you can see how it's going to go. And I wonder how many of the kind of main team that you kind of have been introduced are going to be tempted by the dark side and potentially go over. Like, you know, I think it's a really cool sort of series.
I think the other thing that I'm really enjoying about it is actually that because there's always talk about it. And the thing is that people are getting really sort of irate about stuff. It's interesting because My favorite one that I've seen so far is about fire in space. That's one that they're really going on. But I'm like, okay, but you're fine with all the Star Wars noises in space in all the films that have ever happened, because there's no noise in space either. But we're going to go. You're fine. Cool. Just checking. All right. Cool. The other big thing with that is like, with the story, like I get why people don't enjoy it, but I get why people don't enjoy lots of different things in lots of different Star Wars films. I get why some people don't like the prequels. I get why some people don't even like Star Wars at all. I do understand it. I think the thing is that I don't understand is why people are so unpleasant about it. That is always my biggest thing. I don't mind people not liking something, but it's people being so unnecessarily unpleasant about it. Like, I am enjoying The Acolyte. I genuinely am. A couple of writing bits, you kind of go like, oh, but then I think about that with some of the dialogue in like Empire and A New Hope and Return of the Jedi as well. You know, what is really cool to see though is that we are in an era which we're not familiar with unless you read the books of the High Republic. So if you're not familiar with that part of it, which is whole new territory for me, it's interesting to see that I hate to use this phrasing because it's almost directly from the films, but what Palpatine was saying about the Jedi in Revenge of the Sith is sort of true from a certain point of view. It kind of is. Like, the Jedi aren't perfect, and actually there's some shady stuff going on in the Jedi side of things, and I'm like, I find that really interesting, that this supposed beacon of pureness in the galaxy, because it's like things in real life, when things are supposed to be so good, there's always actually some underlying dark currents to it. There's always something not quite right in the whole picture. And I'm really enjoying that aspect of it.
Yep, I completely agree. To kind of keep it in theme with like the football kind of theme, this is very much like, if you think of Star Wars is football, like, people that like football don't like every single team and every single player. But that doesn't not make them a fan of football. Does that make sense? And so I see this very much like this. Just because it's Star Wars, you don't have to like every single aspect of what they do, or every single storyline, or every single spin-off to be a fan or to not be a fan. Like, it, that's kind of how I see it. So yeah, I'm enjoying it, and there's been a lot of controversy about episode 3 with like the same-sex couple that use the Force to impregnate themselves and stuff. Like, it's a stretch. Let's be honest, it's a stretch from what we've heard. But you know what? If there was a magical space magic out there,
lightning fingers. Again, we're okay with lightning fingers.
Yeah.
Just checking.
Of course you are.
I remember watching that episode in my the entire time that's happening in my head. I'm going, the internet's not gonna like this.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say, Daphne Keane though is killing it in this series, because I didn't even recognize her in this. That's how good of a character she's playing. Daphne Keane is in this as Jack-I. Well, but she's playing Saul's apprentice, Jack-I Lon, and she's so good in it.
She is very good.
It took me a minute. You're like looking at someone and going, I recognize the face, but I don't know where from. And I'm like, oh my god, it's X-23.
Yeah. Oh, she's incredible.
She's so good.
So before we kind of move on from the Acolyte, at the end of episode 2, I think it was, we saw like the master that's controlling May, that's kind of obviously a Sith, and we've seen in the trailers like a red lightsaber, haven't we? So we know that kind of Sith-esque, dark side-esque character is there and coming. And we've seen teasers of their helmet as well, very kind of xenomorph looking. Who do you think it is? Do you think it's someone we've met already?
No.
I
don't think so. I don't think it's linked to anything. A lot of people want it to be linked to Sheev, but it's too far in the past to be remotely linked to the Emperor. And even if he did clone himself and kept living forever as the thing, it's too far apart from all that. So no, I think it's just it's just the Sith, isn't it? It's the birth of the Sith.
No, see, I think it's somebody that's in the series already.
You think it's already someone we've already met?
It's going to be like Soul is actually corrupted by the dark side, because we're seeing lots of bounce backwards and forwards. He's had the conflicting story of losing May and all that kind of stuff. And I think that having the big twist, well, yeah, it could be her. Like for it to be one of the characters that we've already been introduced to, let's be honest, that's not something Star Wars hasn't done before with the Emperor and all the rest of it. So I think it might be kind of, if it's not broken, don't try to fix it. So I think I think it might be one of the main characters that we've met is actually has a dark side and is exploring the dark side of the Force.
Interesting. I like that theory.
That's my theory. That's my theory. Just because it is so disconnected from everything else, for them to now be on episode 3 and not introduced this character says to me that we've already been introduced to him, but we just don't know it yet. That's where I'm at. That's where I'm at. All right.
Yep.
Anything else you want to say about the show? Otherwise, we'll move on to our top 10.
I look forward to episode 4.
When is it? Tuesday night? Wednesday night?
Wednesday. Wednesday, 8 a.m.
Yeah, like early in the morning, isn't it?
It's I was looking this week. It is crazy at the minute because we've got The Boys to catch up on, House of Dragons back, Acolyte is ongoing. Within a few weeks, we're going to have Cobra Kai as well. There's like 4 or 5 good geeky shows all running.
Speaking of House of Dragon, I can officially confirm on the Geek Review finally, I've not long finished Game of Thrones season 1.
Wow, man, you have so much. You have so much.
Who would have known? Sean Bean.
Sean Bean in it again. Guess what? He dies. I've started The Boys. I'm on end of episode 2 now.
Yeah, I'm on 2 as well.
You know I love The Boys. Like that sounded weird, but you know what I mean. Like I absolutely love I love the show The Boys, and
hello there.
It's but it's just brilliant. And you know what, people are kind of complaining, saying it's lazy writing and it's not as good as the previous ones and stuff. But I just think it's
it's cheesy superhero in the real world. It is what it says on the tin at this point.
Exactly. Sky High in the chat said Trinity is the Sith. See? I'm not alone with my theory. There we go. Right. So we did, Ryan, I don't know how well you're going to be able to jump in on this, but we're coming up with like themes every week now. And this week's theme is our top 10 Star Wars moments. So we are going to go through our top 10, 10 through to 1, our top 10 Star Wars moments across all of the franchises. So it's like all of the different
anything at any point.
So it could be Acolyte, it could be Rebels, it could be Clone Wars, it could be a game, it could be films, it could be anything.
Okay.
I've got
I can do a top 10, but mine won't be in any order. Mine will be plucked out my brain. There'll just be 10 things I love, but I actually do know what my number 1 is. So
all right, cool.
I will do 9 randoms, and my number 1 I'll do at the end. You go.
I actually got a couple as well that didn't make it into my top 10. Like I kind of composed my list, and then as I was adding things, these got pushed out. So I don't know whether I can do these now or I'll do these at the end, just in case you mention them.
Do you want to do some honourable mentions between before we do the final top moment?
Yeah, should we do like as top 9, and then before we go on to his number 1 moment each, we'll do some honourable mentions.
Yeah, good stuff. Just before we start, just going to give a couple of shout outs to people watching. So we've got Ezra Gantos, Todd World, Sean the Sheep, Luna Spring in the chat. We've got Andy Roberts, we've got Shelley, it started with a click. We've got Gwyn Cheese asking randomly, do you guys have Godzilla figures? I don't personally. John Hood's in the chat saying happy birthday, Ash. Will we see Evil Ash this week? If you know, you know. Joby One's obviously in the chat as well. We've got Bethany Beth's here as well. We've got Sky High, we've got Bioshock Gamer, as well as other people as well. We will get to you as we carry on.
I love the name Sky High, because Sky High was that really crap Disney.
It was great. Shush your noise. It was a great film. No.
Every time they introduced the villain, he had that weird little sidekick goblin that he kept choking out and going, aga, aga, aga.
No, Zoom was shit. I'll give you that. That was with Tim Allen. That was a terrible one. I will defend Sky High.
Sky High, I like the concept of. I'm not gonna lie.
You just liked the guy that War and Peace. That's all you liked, right?
Shut up. Whatever.
If you Sky High in their defense said I had my name before that. Fair enough. We'll give you that.
They're just really high all the time.
Right, if you have got one of your top 10 Star Wars moments and we're talking about them, throw them in the chat and we'll do our best to throw them up on screen as well. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first. Number 10, Caden's sacrifice.
Oh,
That moment
it's not 10.
That moment in Rebels where Kanan like pushed Ezra back, and you see like he's obviously blind and pushes everyone back, and it's so cool. It's such. I was not expecting Kanan to get murdered in that series. To be fair, it came out of the blue, and it was amazingly done.
You know what? That's on my list as well, but it's my number 7.
They made me care about the CGI character, and I can't believe it.
And I didn't realize I was a fan of Rebels until that moment. I was kind of watching this because it's Star Wars and I kind of want to fill in the story and Ahsoka and all that kind of stuff. And then Kanan's sacrifice, and I was like, man, like
you never really
care about these characters.
Yeah, like with Rebels, you never really felt that sense of like the characters could die because it's a cartoon. You always have that moment of it's a kids' TV program. They're always going to escape and live happily ever after. And then when they had that moment with Kanan, it was like, crap, this is like people can die in this.
Yeah. No, I'm with you on that one. With you on that one. Ryan?
I will pick actually still from Rebels, actually. And it's the moment Thrawn comes into it. I thought the presence of Thrawn, massively shifted the tone of the series. Again, similar to what Ash was saying about with the death scene and like what you were saying, I kind of feel like, especially someone who is a big fan of the books before Disney obviously took over, Thrawn is such an integral character in that. So to see him brought back and done so well, and the voice being just phenomenally ominous and calm and intelligent and menacing, it just completely changed. It actually made almost like he's a bit scary. In what you're right, you thought like in your head you're going, I'm just watching this kid's cartoon because it's part of Star Wars, and then you realize actually no, this isn't a kid's cartoon anymore. It's a series. Like it's sort of really and I just thought that was pretty phenomenal.
And the fact that the dude that was trying to take out the rebels for the entire program to that point, then he's like, I need to defect sides because Thrawn's turned up. That tells you everything.
Exactly. So I thought that was I'll put that one there.
Yeah. Okay, we were with that. My 10 moment was in Clone Wars. So again, animation. But it was Ahsoka versus Maul. I just thought that was such a good fight.
That was a great fight.
And it was one of the times because Darth Maul for me is Star Wars. Like just Darth Maul was just he made the bad guys scarier. Like because obviously with the prequels, it was kind of like, well, who's going to live up to Darth Vader's kind of shadow. And when Darth Maul, he just was Star Wars for me. And that fight with Ahsoka, I think, is one of the best. Yeah, one of the best fights across all Star Wars.
Yeah,
I think it is definitely.
Sorry.
Andy H is in the chat and said, "Holy hell, Geek Week with Eric Morecambe."
What do you think of it so far? Rubbish. I am saying all the right things, but not necessarily in the right order. I'll give you that, sunshine.
Number 9.
Vader versus Ahsoka in Rebels.
Oh,
there was that whole build-up with
overlap.
Yeah, it was for me. It was the build-up with when there's that moment where Ezra's talking and then Ahsoka and Kanan are both deep in the Force, like trying to sense who this guy is. And Ezra's like, I've sensed this before. It's cold. It's evil. And then it just cuts to Vader. The apprentice lives. Like, chills.
Yeah, I've got that on my list as well. It's higher up. I'll say when it is when we get to it. But again, just another one for Ahsoka. And this is for that fight and the one that I just talked about with Maul. They're the when people talk to me about, I don't watch the animation stuff. I just watch I'm like, watch those two fight. And it solidifies it as Star Wars. Like if you watch those two fights, but the Vader one, having the apprentice and the master, like it just everything, especially if you've watched it and you've seen all of Clone Wars with Anakin and Ahsoka, and then to see that fight, that's the culmination of it all, isn't it?
the voice overlap they do with the original Anakin voice actor from Clone Wars and with Vader, and it's molded together, and it says Ahsoka, you know, and it's got the eye bit exposed. It's just phenomenal cinematography in an animated series.
Yeah, fantastic.
And the fact that they kept that when they did Kenobi, it was the opposite sides of the mask that they captured that brilliantly, didn't they?
What's your name, Ryan?
So good.
Again, mine aren't in any order, but something I absolutely adore is pod racing. I freaking love pod racing, and pod racing is not just the scenes in the film, which I still wish someone would edit, because on the DVDs there's actually an extra footage from another lap and there's an extended intro. I wish someone would just edit all those together and just put them on YouTube for me just to watch whenever I want. I'm looking at Jake because I'm thinking that's a project I could probably get him to do. But it's just the games are phenomenal. The pod racer pilot designs, the pod racers themselves, the sport. Like being a kid, I went to there was a Barbican, a Star Wars exhibition at the Barbican about the making of Episode 1. Not long after it came out, it was really sort of big deal. Or just before it came out, it might have been in London. And my dad worked on, and we went up there and went to it. And as a kid, it was mind-boggling. I got to sit in Mohonic's pod racer, and then the arcade machine that they had at the end of it, which was in a lot of arcades for pod racer, was one that you sat in, and the controls were actually the sticks, like in Anakin's. Fun story, I almost won one of those because I drunkenly bid on eBay for one of those machines when I lived at my parents'. Woke up like the next day, saw it had like a few minutes left, and I was like, oh my god, I've won a giant. How am I going to explain to my parents, by the way, I've got a full-on arcade machine where you can sit in the pod racer that I've won on eBay. Would you mind if I popped it in your garage or put it in the garden with the tarp over? Thankfully, someone bid on it last minute just before. I was like, oh my god. But the whole thing about pod racing as a kid, when I was 9-10 years old, the magic of that and like the exhilaration of it has stayed with me as an adult. And now they've re-released pod racer on the modern consoles. I think, and it's good to see. I would love for them to do another game, because they did 2 games originally, Episode 1 Racer and Racer's Revenge. I think we've got time for it, like for a new race Star Wars episode, like another racer. I think pod racing is just phenomenal.
Yeah, at the at Downtown Disney, Disney Quest it was called. That was the big building where it was just full of arcade machines. You paid like $10 to get in, and it was just, you had unlimited access to these arcade cabinets. They had on the ground floor the one you're talking about. It was the one with the sticks like Anakin had.
Yes.
And they also had the one where you could if you physically held a lightsaber and fought Vader.
Yeah.
They had all these like really retro, like proper retro arcade cabinets. It was just amazing.
Pod racing's a good shout, mate. Definitely.
Pod racing was amazing.
My number 9 is taking it back to the original trilogy. And it wasn't necessarily a scene, but kind of more of a part. And that's the Jabba's palace with the gate in the floor and the Rancor.
Yeah.
That element. I remember as a kid.
Minute, by the way.
Rise off. But seeing that as a kid was just like everything. Like it just made Star Wars. Like I've always been a big fan of like monster films and creature features and everything like that. And that was the first kind of moment in Star Wars where it really made it bigger, if that makes sense. And it was just kind of like, wow, there are big monsters, there are big aliens, and there was just something very sinister about dropping somebody through a gate in the floor to just be fed to a monster. Like, and I just thought that was very primitive, but in like a futuristic setting. And plus I had the kid, I had the toy as a kid, and it wasn't anything near as good, but the little kind of twisty bits and the gate. And yeah, so Jabba's palace, the gate.
Sorry, do that motion again. The what bit? The twisty bits. The twisty bits. Sorry, that made me laugh.
I was holding on to the little dial.
The way you did it, twisty bits.
Here we go. Just a couple of quick comments. Here we go. Joby1 has said, speaking of the more Ahsoka fight, they actually brought Ray Park in and did mocap for that, which is a good bit. And also as well, I don't know if somebody's going to have this, but the bit where Vader finds Ahsoka's saber and the clone helmets in the snow, that almost made it onto my list. I was kind of like, oh, do I put it in? But it is such a epic conclusion to the whole kind of saga. Well,
that's before Clone. That is before Rebels.
There it is. That's it. Yeah, but see, it always annoyed me as a kid that it went up and not down. Yeah, Ryan's still muted. He doesn't realise, but he's still muted. What is happening to Leia there? There we go. You're on mute,
Ryan. Mute, mate. Mute.
It got very dark then, didn't it? Sorry.
Yeah. You're just there going, like Leia swinging around. But yeah,
looking mad at Leia.
But yeah, I had that toy, and as a kid, to have that toy with the little twisty bits, I'm not going to do the motion again. So I was there going like this, the little twisty bits.
Jabba's got a cup, by the way. I've given him one of those cups.
Yeah.
There you go. Just give everyone a cup. So yeah, there we go. That's my number 9. What's your number 8, Sorrel?
Number 8, Anakin falling in love with Padme. Everyone hates those moments in the prequels. It makes me smile every time. The stupid scenes with Anakin and Padme, where like just the silly, it's the cheesy and romantic bit.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm not too brave to tease a senator. All that kind of cheesy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also the music they wrote for it, Across the Stars, the piece is called. John Williams is a really beautiful composition.
Beautiful piece. Yeah, it's great.
What about you, Ryan? What's your number 8?
Number 8. The final space battle in Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
Because I remember the first time seeing that on the big screen in '97, when and it's there's a particular shot where it's coming out, or it's from the cockpit of the Falcon, and all the TIE fighters are going to the screen. Like they're coming towards the screen, and they even said in the sort of the special edition feature on the VHS that they did afterwards that basically they just went nuts with how many TIE fighters they put on the screen, because suddenly there was just like 50 TIE fighters flying, like, and TIE interceptors flying at the screen, and it just looked. I remember just the whole battle looked amazing, and then there's the A-wing that gets clipped and it goes through the bridge of the Star Destroyer. Then they have that whole sequence where they're flying through the Death Star. I just think it, and let's be honest, you also got Nien Nunb, which is like one of the best characters ever. Yeah, with his giant fish face next to Lando. And also the Lando Calrissian saying, "Hello, buddy, don't let me down." Like, oh,
it's a very cool scene. Very, very cool scene.
The GOAT.
My number 8 is in the prequels again, and it's the Yoda versus Dooku fight scene. Reason being, obviously, Dooku, Christopher Lee is like such gravitas anyway as the character, and I really liked the Dooku character. But for me, it was seeing Yoda do backflips, because obviously up until then we had only ever seen him walk around with a little stick, or obviously
he still has a stick in that scene. He walks in the scene with her.
He walks in with it.
Like,
that's what I mean. It was a real kind of, I can only liken it to like a She's All That kind of scene. It was like, through all of the films and up to that moment, we had seen like the ugly girl, and then all of a sudden,
that she is.
But yeah, it was just seeing Yoda being able to do what the other Jedis did, and it just made him. I don't know. It just kind of elevated him for a kid. It kind of elevated him to like actually, he is very cool. So yeah, so that was there. And yeah, and just, but both characters, like an elderly man and obviously like an elderly Yoda, like just absolutely nail it. And obviously we see Anakin get sabred, don't we? So it made for a good scene.
Sabred. I like that.
Sabred. So no spoilers. Go on then, number 7. I'll start with 7 because mine was the Kanan sacrifice. So I'm out on 7. Okay. So we spoke about that already.
Mine was the Razor stepped into a wider world. Episode 7.
Oh.
The bit where she finds the lightsaber. And you have that whole moment, that whole sequence of like where she gets the Force vision, and you hear the classic Obi-Wan Kenobi and original sort of Obi-Wan's voices doing the whole "you just stepped into a wider world." I love that. That's still, even if I watch episode 7 now, that still gives me chills every time.
Man, it's a good scene. It is a good scene, and that's the. I
Very
think
good
it seems
scene.
like that it's
Good
a
choice.
shame when people kind of do dismiss those new films, because there are some
Mhm.
really beautifully written scenes that I think
Mhm.
in the future will go down as kind of like iconic top tier scenes for future Star Wars fans.
Yeah. We've had this conversation 1,000 times, but like my daughter was introduced to Star Wars through Rey. So I mean, I'm not one of these people that do hate the sequels, because she was
No.
introduced to Star Wars through Kylo Ren and Rey. Every time we go to Florida and we see Star Wars, she's not excited to see Darth Vader like I am. She's excited to see Kylo Ren. So I mean,
Yep.
that's her Star Wars, and you can't dismiss that, because that is
No.
the new. That's how kids are introduced to it. She goes back and watches the originals and the Clone Wars, and because of that, because of Rey. So
Yep.
you can't dismiss Rey.
No, I'm exactly the same. Like you say, we've spoken about that a million times.
Yeah.
But I think that you got to also think about future proofing it. So where you look at the originals that obviously came out in like the 70s and 80s, we're now in 2024 when episode 7, episode 8 and stuff like that are, 20, 30, 40 years in the future, and children that probably aren't even born yet are fans of Star Wars. They're going to look back at iconic scenes, and I think that Rey, you're part of a bigger universe part. I think that's going to be one of the scenes that people talk about. I think that's going to become an iconic scene.
Yeah.
So you watch Rey get the Anakin treatment in 20 years' time, like everyone's going to love her.
Definitely, 100% she will.
Yeah. So there we go. What was your part 7 on your next one, Ryan?
Star Tours.
Yeah. God, yeah.
Nice.
Star Tours.
The
original Star Tours. The original Star Tours. I got lucky. I went to Disneyland, America, in 2001 when I was a kid, and I've never been so excited to go for something in my life just because of that. Because my friend had gone and got me. Do you remember when you used to have to get copies of pictures, like doubles of pictures, the like chemist or whatever? So he got me doubles of the pictures he took of inside the ride of like 3PO in there, and the big AT-AT walker that used to spray water out onto the crowd, and the speeder bike. There's actually a picture that was in my parents' living room up until they moved of me on the speeder bike as a kid that they had out there. And I think that whole ride with the pilot droid, which I've got Rex in the box. I can see him there. He's in the box. But I just thought the whole thing was awesome, and I've never been so excited as a kid and felt like I was part of the adventure. And like I remember just being like, that's such an amazing feeling. I did the ride like 4 times when we were there. But just beautiful.
There was that scene as well in Rebels, where they actually go on a Star Tours ship and there's Rex, and the fact that they wrote that in as canon was one of my favorite things ever. When I went to Disney World, when Lynn was pregnant, my wife was pregnant, and God, when was shit, 9 years ago nearly now. My God, I'm old. But yeah, Lynn was pregnant at the time and she couldn't go on the ride, so I went on my own on Star Tours. This was before it became known as Star Tours: The Adventure Continues, and it was when episode 7 had just come out, and I went on, and it was the last ride of the day, and I got in the queue, and it said 10-minute wait. So I was like, yeah, I'm off on that bad boy, because as long as you get in the queue before park close, you can want it. And the guy, as I was getting on, obviously I'm there with my Star Tours t-shirt and all my, couple of decked out in Star Wars with my lightsaber attached to my waist, and
all the merch.
all the merch. And the guy saw me coming a mile away and was like, he said, give this to the person at the front. And it was a lanyard. Normally they do this at Disney World quite regularly. It's normally just a way of seeing how long the wait times are between kiosks. And I got there and the guy went, you've got the lanyard. And I was like, yeah. So I tried to hand him and he was like, come with me. And they took me to the this one end bay, and there was no one else on the ride, just me. And he went, you get the last ride of the day. It's the last shuttle of the day. A soul trip to Endor. And he shoved me on it. I was the only kid in there. I sat in the middle of the aisle, and I was the only person in the whole ride. And as the ride got going, they then included the new scene with Rey, rather than like normally it's Yoda that comes on the screen and sort of does the whole "you have got a rebel spy on board." Instead of that, it was Rey saying, "You've got someone who's vital to the future of the Jedi," and all this kind of stuff. And it was the Rey scene. It was one of the first times it was shown, basically. And I got to see that in Disney World, like before it went live. It was like a soft opening.
That's really
And
cool.
my God, that was amazing. It was the last trip of the day. It was the last trip to Endor, they called it.
That is cool. That's really awesome.
Yeah,
Oh,
I love Disney for stuff like that.
That's a really good shout for number 7. I like that, Ryan. Well done, mate. Number 6.
Darth Vader versus Kenobi in the Kenobi TV series.
That's my number 6.
That moment where they cut his mask and you see, Hayden Christensen underneath for the first time in years, and the fact they use his voice and James Earl Jones and they mesh it together. They are very good at that with Vader, like we mentioned before, when they do when they mesh all the voices together to make it sound like all the different collaboration of characters. I love that.
You didn't kill Anakin Skywalker.
Yeah,
I did.
And it's the look on on his face when he says that. He's menacing. That is a scary moment when he says that. He's like, I killed him. And it's that look of like he's laughing almost in Kenobi's face.
That to me as well. Like that's my number 6. And like what I was saying about scenes, like say what you want about the Obi-Wan Kenobi series as a whole. I think that episode, that scene is going to be a classic that goes down in history. And I just think and also as well, because it was kind of expected that it was going to be like a bit of no one's going to win. It's going to be a push-pull kind of thing. But Vader just annihilates Obi-Wan, just proper puts him underground. And it was kind of like literally.
Yeah.
But it was just a fantastic scene. And as you say, to see Hayden Christian again as Anakin / Darth Vader, and to mirror back to that animated version of the broken, it was just brilliant. It was just a brilliant scene.
Agreed.
No two ways about it. What's your number 6, Ryan?
So it's actually on the Vader theme, I guess, because I actually thought of it before Ash said about it. But Rogue One's last scene with Vader, the Vader corridor, because I think the thing about knowing so much about Vader's backstory with being Anakin Skywalker, and we'd seen so much in the Clone Wars, I think Vader lost his scariness as a villain a little bit. The more we knew about him, the fear went away. And I think Rogue One's scene, one, it was unexpected for a lot of people, and it was part of the reshoots, interestingly enough. So that's why reshoots aren't always a bad thing, and people need to get that out of their head when they hear a film's being reshot. Doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It means that they thought of something better, maybe, or want to change something. That was part of the ending reshoots, and that whole scene, I thought, made Darth Vader terrifying again. Like genuinely, because it's the darkness, and then just hearing the breathing, and then when the lightsaber ignites, and he just mercilessly cuts through, forces them to the ceiling. It's slow, it's methodical, but he's just moving forward. He's unstoppable, and there's the panic in all the rebel fleet troopers. And there's the bit where and the guy screams, "Launch!" When they finally get through, and you just see that last shot of him standing there in the open space as the ship gets away, and you realize that is the beginning of A New Hope. And you just go, and then if you watch A New Hope straight afterwards, you're like, Vader is fucking scary. And that must have been what Vader must have been like for people watching it in the 70s for the first time. Darth Vader was this big, intimidating, dark figure of mystery and evil, and that, I thought, Rogue One, I'll give it anything. I mean, I love the entire film. I think it's a masterpiece. But that scene in particular, it made Vader scary again. And I think that is worth remembering.
Yep. That is actually my number 3 on my list, that scene.
Sorry.
For all of the reasons that you mentioned, just because it was, I can't disagree with anything you said. There was something so just poetic about that scene. And it just, and when you actually go back and you watch the original 3, and I've kind of had this with my own kids, we're watching Star Wars, like Vader isn't scary by modern comparison. In those original films, he's actually a bit wet, let's be honest. It's kind of like, oh come on mate, like he's not doing anything that scary. But when you watch that as a prequel into it, like you say, it's like behind the mask there's some, he's holding back for a lot. And when you see all those scenes like with him choking people and stuff, you're just kind of just teasing into it. But like you say, it's almost animalistic, isn't it, in that scene, that it's just his sights are focused and nothing stopping. And it's a fantastic scene, absolutely fantastic scene. And he just, Vader was scary again.
I've scared myself so much I need to go and get a drink, so I'll be back in 2 seconds.
Ryan is so scared he needs a wee. So there we go.
Just to touch on Bioshock Gamers' comment there, they're saying, I wish they kept Rex for Star Tours. The official canon with Rex, for those people that aren't... Oh,
I am here. I'm here.
For those people that aren't massively into the park stuff, Rex actually does continue. So Rex, as the pilot, crash landed his Star Tours ship on Batuu. Batuu is the Galaxy's Edge planet, at the edge of the galaxy, and the droid depot recommission his droid and sell it to the local cantina, who use him as a DJ droid, and he becomes then known as DJ Rex. So he is still around. His animatronic from Star Tours does still exist, and he is live and kicking in Orlando, Florida, every single day of the week.
So is that actually the same droid used from Star Wars?
The original droid. That's the whole point of it. It's the original droids that were used in the Star Tours thing. Were basically used as DJ Rex now.
I do like that, but in contradiction to what Bioshock Gamers saying, I do like that they kind of modernized it for the younger audience, because like you say, like for kids that kind of have grown up on the newer films and stuff, it makes that ride relevant and it doesn't make it dated. So it's very clever that they've done it all that way.
Because let's not forget, it is obviously the late great Pee Wee Herman that is voicing Rex.
Yeah.
And when there is the whole scene in Galaxy's Edge where if you go to the cantina and see DJ Rex, and if you stay there long enough, eventually you'll hear the loop go around, and there's a bit in the act loop that he does where he malfunctions. All the lights in the cantina sort of like malfunction, and he shuts down for a moment, and he goes rebooting, and then he starts going Star Tours initiated, and he goes back to the original voiceover for the ride, and he goes back to whoa, where am I? And all of a sudden he goes power down, and he comes back on and goes, whoa, what happened there? Back to spinning the tunes, and he goes back to DJing. But there's this whole moment where he turns back into Rex for a split second.
Oh, I love that.
Good.
That's really so
good.
That is really cool. My number 5 was Ahsoka versus Vader in Rebels. We've already touched on that. So
yeah, my 5 we have touched on, but just say it's the final showdown between Maul and Obi-Wan in Rebels.
Yeah,
it's an iconic moment for people that are into Star Wars. It's that bit where Obi-Wan switches his stance. Not many people pick up on this. So he goes from the traditional Obi-Wan stance over the head to he does the Qui-Gon Jinn stance, which throws Maul off his game completely. That's why he defeats him so easily. Maul wasn't expecting to fight Qui-Gon Jinn, basically.
Doesn't he go through 3 stances in that?
There we go.
He does 3 stances, but yeah, the final stance that he does where he puts the saber to side like that, that's Qui-Gon Jinn.
Yeah.
Which, Nice.
He splits through the different styles of lightsaber combat, basically.
And I think just to touch on the Rebels and Clone Wars Maul story as well, like Maul was such a great villain that obviously didn't last very long in the movies.
Yeah.
But to be able to have such a fleshed out, deep, branching storyline for such a cool villain, like absolutely. You know what I really like about Maul as well is that they made his little piercing canon in his ear because Ray Park didn't take it out. So I just love that. So that whenever you see him, he's got like this little piercing, and it's like all because he forgot to take his earring out. There we go. What's your next one, Ryan? What would you put in at 5?
What a put in at 5. I'll tell you what. It's episode 2, Attack of the Clones, the arena battle.
Oh yeah,
good shout. Well, with all the monsters and animals and stuff.
When you suddenly see, like the whole thing from the start to finish, when it's the 3 of them versus the 3 beasts. Then when you see Mace Windu's boots slowly walking into frame, And then the Jedi just igniting all their sabers around the arena, jumping in. And there's all these Jedi that you've seen in the background all this time, even since episode 1, that you're like, you want to see what they do fighting and things like that. You know, you never really see many Jedi, because when you got to remember, in episode 1, you only see Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan, and Darth Maul fight. And before then, we'd only seen Darth Vader, Luke, and Ben Kenobi fight. So suddenly, everything we'd always wanted, all these Jedi that we'd seen in episode 1 have all got their own lightsabers. Mace Windu has a purple lightsaber. They're cutting down droids. Kit Fisto appears, which is my favorite Jedi of all time. There's a Jedi that gets shot and falls off a balcony, whose name is Coleman Treebor, or as I nicknamed him, Mustard Mint. There is just so many good bits in that whole arena thing. And then suddenly, when it looks all hopeless, they're all surrounded, and then, you know, the gunships come down, and they're like... And Yoda's like, "Oh, around the survivors, a perimeter create." You know, you're like, "Oh."
That is a really good scene. I can't believe I missed that one off. That is a really good scene. Yeah, amazing scene. Okay, into our top 4, are we now?
Yeah.
Okay, what's your 4 number then?
So Maul and Savage versus the Emperor.
There we go. Joey One did say Maul and Savage versus Sidious.
Again, a lot of mine are Clone Wars and Rebels based, but that to me, I love the cartoons. Maul and Savage. The fact that it took 2 of them and they still were no match, even the slightest. Maul being as powerful he is as well, was still no match for the Emperor. The Emperor just walks all over them in that scene. And basically makes Maul he basically turns Maul into his little apprentice, basically, again.
There was something very like 90s superhero about that, because we had the red one, we had the yellow one, we were just waiting for like a blue one and a green one. You know, come and give us a whole team of different like Darth Mauls.
Well, a lot of people don't know that whole scene leads into the comics. It leads into the story arc of the Dark Horse comics with Maul. And what he did next, kind of thing, because there is a whole storyline of what came after that. But yeah, he obviously the Emperor kills Savage in that scene as well. Savage was one of the big villains in Clone Wars. The fact that they built Savage up to be this big tank of a beast of a character, and the Emperor just flicks him to the side, basically like, "See ya."
Yeah.
So good.
Agreed.
Yeah, 100%. Just a couple. The force is strong with these guys. Force push that like button. Thanks very much. JB1 said epic, because obviously he's mentioned that Savage and Maul versus Sidious earlier on. My number 4 is an obvious classic. I feel like a bit of a cop out for saying this one, but it is Return of the Sith, Anakin versus Obi-Wan. That whole lava fight.
Battle of the Heroes.
Battle of the Heroes, yeah, it's just such a good scene, and it's that bit where Anakin obviously proper goes dark and the eyes change, and you see him get burnt like a marshmallow on a bonfire. Do you know what I mean? It's like
that whole section is the most you gotta admit, that is the most quotable thing in all of the prequels.
You have done that yourself.
Yeah, it's those moments are the most like quoted lines of the entire prequel trilogy.
I just think as well, stepping back from watching it as a movie, I just think for Hayden Christensen, like that scene alone is just so well acted. Like he is just, and when you think about him in the previous films and how kind of clean and friendly and you know he is, and then you look at him in that, he's just a complete opposite end of the spectrum. And I think that was done so well, because when you first watch the prequel films, you're kind of like, how is this guy going to turn into Darth Vader? How does this guy become the biggest, baddest villain that we've ever had on screen, sort of thing? And then you see that scene and you're like, oh, okay.
See, that was the thing. And what I know, this is what, again, a lot of people say you should introduce people to it by, doing the whole episodes 4, 5, 6, then 1, 2, and 3. I didn't. My daughter wouldn't sit through 4, 5, and 6 because it's too old. No. She wouldn't sit for more than 2 minutes at a time because she got bored. But like, she knew who Darth Vader was because of the CT series. She didn't know Darth Vader was Anakin. She didn't know. And then, so she watched Rebels with me. And then as she got older, I went back and showed her 1, 2, and 3. And I'll never forget that moment of watching that scene from the third film and seeing my daughter on the edge of the seat, like, he's Darth Vader. I'm like, yes. Like, and just seeing her face, like, the realization on her face, like, he's Darth Vader. Like, yes, he is.
I did it the same way with my son, like my eldest son, because I didn't get the opportunity to watch it in story, like in chronological order, because it was released in a different order. So I never had the chance to see it as a story from beginning to end, sort of thing. So with my son, for the same reason, the older films were just too out of date. We put episode 5 on, and we got 10 minutes into it, and it just looked too old. It was an old film. We watched the Anakin, the prequels. By the time we got to the end of the third film, he was eager to watch the fourth one and just watch the next 3 with like the original trilogy without even taking a blink. It was kind of like, no, I need to see where this story goes. But yeah, I'm with you on that. But I just love that scene so much. One of my favorite scenes in movies across the board.
Nice.
What about yourself, Ryan? What's your third?
My number 4, actually. I didn't do my number 4 yet.
Yeah, number 4.
Oh no, so this is 4. So yeah, 4.
Yeah.
So my number 4 is the Bantam era of books. So the 90s and early 2000s. Not to disparage any of the books that come out recently, because I think there's been some really great new books, but I'm talking about what is now known as the Legends continuity of books. It was when there was no more Star Wars at one point, like before Episode 1 came out, it was all based around these books. That was what happened after Return of the Jedi. There were some bits in between, but before, there wasn't much set before A New Hope, deliberately, because they knew George was doing the prequels. But everything afterwards and set, like, the Old Republic happened because they were like, you can either do a book that's set after Return of the Jedi, but it has to fall into all these criteria, or you can just do one that's like God knows how long in the past, and that's when the game designers decided to do that and start that. But the books in the Bantam era, so you got like things like the Shadows of the Empire media thing, which I'm a massive fan of. You had like the Truce of Bakura, the Thrawn trilogy, which that comes from Heir to the Empire. There is just so many good Star Wars books from that era that made it so expansive. And it was, people mind that we got a solo spin-off film. It's like, yeah, but if you look at the books, you've got like hundreds of spin-off books, and like no one's moaned about the books. They're fantastic. They're great stories. There's something for everyone. They're themed differently. The cover artwork on all of them is just brilliant. And there's a really good young adult series, which is all based around Jason and Jaina Solo and their time at the Jedi Temple. I thought it was just such a wonderful, huge expanded universe. And it was all linked. The Rogue Squadron series of books was just like the X-Wing books were, and still are, some of my favorite Star Wars books of all time, all centered around Wedge Antilles and Rogue Squadron. So yeah, my number 3 is the Bantam era of books. Number 4 is the Bantam era of books.
Cool.
I think there were only a matter of time until they turned some of those books into this like CGI cartoons. Because obviously we had like the Timothy Zahn saga for Thrawn, but then obviously they brought him back to make the canon versions of Thrawn's backstory after they introduced him in Rebels, where there's even a bit in the book where they go to Batuu with Anakin. So I mean,
yes,
those 3 books I reckon will become a CGI cartoon at some point in the near future. 100%.
Yeah. So my number 3, we're into top 3 now. My number 3 was the Rogue One Vader scenes. We can skip past my 3. What's your 3?
My number 3 is a Galaxy's Edge thing. It was building a lightsaber in Galaxy's Edge, because that was the moment where no matter how old you are, there's no way, if you're a Star Wars fan, that you can enter that moment and not feel like you've just entered into Star Wars. Like there's a bit where you're in Galaxy's Edge and you still feel like you're in a theme park. But then when you go into the lightsaber building part, and this guy sort of like suddenly, like, you pay your money and you join a queue, and then this guy sort of goes, "Come on, we got to go," and he pushes people into this building, and it just becomes a story. And you forget that you're in a theme park. And this guy's like, "I'm sorry for that entrance, guys, but these are troubled times. the Empire are watching, and he builds up this whole story of, you know, and then they do the whole it's a kyber crystal, and the music that is set to the whole thing is just beautiful. And he holds up a kyber crystal, the whole room goes blue with the color of the crystal, and he goes, you can be blue, red, green, purple. What color will you be? Close your eyes, reach out with the force, and pull your kyber crystal, and this big thing just appears in front of you, and you basically choose a kyber crystal. And they encourage you to close your eyes and like feel for the force, and they encourage you to play. And that is what I love about it.
I've promised my eldest that when we go back, that we're both going to do that, because I'm doing it hands down. And I was like, you know what? I promise you can do it, because you can't be a Star Wars fan and miss it. Like,
there was a bit where like one of the pieces wouldn't twist into position, and this guy was like, he could have just easily broke character and gone, sorry mate, we'll get you a new one. And he didn't. He was like, we travel the galaxy and we come across these parts that are rusted. Let me take that. And he takes it apart and pulls this piece off that doesn't fit. And he's like, let me go see if I can find another one in the archive. He could have just set him off in the back to get you another one. He didn't. He made it all part of the story. He comes back like Padawan, I found you a new piece, and like offers me this like makeshift piece. And you could easily go, no, I don't want that one. I want the other one, pal. But no, it's like the fact that he's given me this piece. Like, no, I'm using that now. He is my master, and I'm a
part of my Star Wars journey.
It feels as stupid as it
I am
Star that way. And they do they do that whole scene, and they genuinely build you up. And like I built that the yellow and silver looking one, which was very much Old Republic. And the guy looked at me and went, what color kyber crystal have you chosen, my friend? I was like, well, I chose the yellow one. He went, He goes, and he said, like, you're a Jedi Temple guard. I can see that in you. And like, they light the lights, and you light the lightsaber the first time, and it goes yellow. And everything about that experience just felt like you stepped into the film.
You've sold it to me. I'm definitely doing it.
Right? I love it. If you watch some of the videos on YouTube, there's no way you can watch that and not feel it. You know what I mean? It's amazing.
Yeah. What's your number 3, Ryan?
Action figures.
Nice.
It sounds like a weird thing to say, but I think the Star Wars action figures, when I was a kid, I had a lot of different toys of things. Transformers and Star Wars were the two things that I felt the toys really pulled me in and allowed me to create my own stories as a kid, which is hence why I've got all this now still. But I think there was nothing quite as accessible as Star Wars for me, because all the stuff from the 70s and 80s was now in boot sales and charity shops and people were selling their collections. And then there was new stuff coming out in the Power of the Force 2 stuff. It was so accessible, and I very quickly had, for very little money, a very big collection of toys that I could make my own stories with. And they were, because they did so many, like Kenner did back in the day, I could just make so many stories. I could take them everywhere, in every ship, in every combination, fighting everyone else, and I could have multiple stormtroopers rather than just like one stormtrooper to fight like the entire rebel main crew and all that, And I just think the whole action figure thing has still, and I know people give Hasbro a bad rap nowadays, but I disagree, and I still think it's wonderful that we've still got those figures and those stories continuous and those displays that we can still do. So the action figure side of thing for me is one of my most treasured bits about Star Wars.
I think that's brilliant, mate. Okay, so into our top 2. Number 2, should I go first?
Yeah,
go.
The Mandalorian. Luke Skywalker's entrance.
Ooh,
that was bloody good.
That's
a very good one.
That's my number 2, because for me it was a massive pop. Like I hadn't really read any spoilers about it. There was sniffs around somebody coming in, but I didn't really see it coming. I was so invested in the story, I didn't see it coming. And the original Mandalorian series I sat and watched with my son, because he had just completed all the films and he was very much on the Star Wars kind of trip. And because Luke Skywalker was such a kind of fresh character in his mind, as soon as we realized who it was, to see the pop and the joy and the excitement in him that I was feeling, it was just a fantastic moment for me as a dad, as a Star Wars fan. But just, it was just, there was something really good about that. But I just thought it was also done so well, similar to the corridor scene for Vader, it just showed how good Luke Skywalker became.
Mm.
And it showed you how far CGI had come, didn't it? Because obviously we had that bit with Carrie Fisher at the end of Rogue One, which was a bit touch and go on it. Whereas when you saw Luke in Mandalorian, it looked like Luke, the original Luke. It was scarily accurate.
And it was it was something about the Mandalorian is such a good series, but it wasn't quite fitted into the rest of the universe that it was taking place around. And it was kind of like, why have we never come across this character? Like, why is it just this whole amazing story that just doesn't really fit? And it was that final piece of the puzzle where it just kind of linked it all together. And yeah, and it was just an amazing scene.
Awesome.
Very good.
What's your number two?
My number two for me, and it's a moment which has spanned, it's not just in one thing, which is what I love about this. This was almost my number one. The fact that it was in Clone Wars, it was in Rebels, it's been in video games, live action. The Order 66 message from Obi-Wan Kenobi warning people not to come back to the temple. The fact that they've used it now in so many pieces of different media. We've seen it in CGI, live action. We've seen it in the books. We've seen it in everything now. Ewan McGregor's iconic voice of "Do not return. This time has gone." That is just such an iconic speech now for Star Wars.
Yep.
Love it.
What's your number two, Ryan?
My number two is the Dark Forces / Jedi Knight saga on the video games. It was this awesome thing where we played as Karl Katarn, and then later the characters. But it was this whole thing. It started on PC on MS-DOS. That's how long ago it was, in '95. And I've just actually finished replaying the remastered of the Dark Forces, the original one on Xbox, which has been an absolute blast from the past. But the whole story of Karl Katarn starting in Dark Forces, he was the original person who got the Death Star plans. Then we had the that's where Dark Troopers came from originally, and they looked phenomenal. Then we had Jedi Knight, Dark Forces 2, Jedi Knight. Then it became Jedi Knight, The Mysteries of the Sith, which is where we got Mara Jade's introduction, the big Star Wars character there. Then from that, we went on to Jedi Knight 2, Jedi Outcast, where we got to really have the lightsaber combat, which really felt awesome. First time you really felt like a Jedi. And then Jedi Academy, which is where you actually got to be a student of Karl Katarn, and you did all these mysteries, and you kind of felt like, and you got to design your own character and your own lightsaber, and you kind of felt like that. It was such a great journey as a thing, and it added so much to the mythos, and I really loved that. So that's my number two.
Awesome. Right, so before we go into our number one, a couple of honorable mentions. If I just rattle mine off, and then Sorrel, you rattle yours off, and Ryan, you rattle yours off. So I won't focus on them too much. But my honorable mentions are Order 66 being carried out in Clone Wars. There was just something very cool about seeing that side of it. In The Last Jedi, the Kylo and Rey scene where they kill Snoke and the Praetorian Guard.
That was mine. Yeah, that was mine.
Just cinematically, the red against the black against the blue, beautiful to look at. And again, I think it's one of those scenes that will become iconic in future. But also as well, Kylo Ren killing the Knights of Ren in Rise of the Skywalker. I know there's the cheesy kind of, I haven't got a lightsaber, put my hand behind my back and I got one. I know that was all very cheesy, but the Knights of Ren was really underused. I thought the Knights of Ren had a good opportunity to do something with, but to see him take them out, it was just, and for the same reason that Kylo Ren is the bad guy for my kids and it is the intro to Star Wars, but I just really like that scene. Last two, Cal Kestis and the Star Wars games, just being able to play Star Wars on that kind of new console and be able to do the things that you can do in that game, similar to what you were saying, Ryan, but to be able to take it to another level. Equally, Starkiller in Power of the Force. I know he's not kind of canon, or he kind of wasn't canon or whatever, but there was just something very cool about it. Force Unleashed, sorry. But my number one kind of honorable mention would be Cad Bane, and I couldn't pinpoint a particular scene to make it onto my list, but Cad Bane is one of my favorite Star Wars characters across all properties. I love the Western bounty hunter the voice, the look, everything about him, but none of his scenes were enough to go onto my list.
Yeah.
But as a character, he's one of my favorite parts of Star Wars.
Cool.
That's my honorable mentions.
My honorable mentions again, Cal Kestis again, like you say, the fact that they managed to make that feel like it was such a part of Star Wars that you can't believe it didn't exist. You know what I mean? Like he's always felt like he belonged there. Always felt right the moment you felt like played the game. Brilliant story. Rosie Arrow Dawson, like the fact that everyone hated the idea of replacing Ahsoka, but then seeing how she went about it. Again, it felt like she'd always been there. It didn't feel like she was out of place. It just felt like she belonged there. Kylo Ren and Solo, that scene of I don't think I have the power to do it. I love that moment. Young Kanan, obviously in the Bad Batch. You see young Kanan and his master, and you see that whole backstory scene. And then one of my favorite scenes in Star Wars, but it didn't make the list, but the planet missing from the archives. You know, beautiful the mind of a child is. I love that little moment of the fact that it took one of the little younglings to go, maybe someone deleted it from the archives. I love that. Such a cool little scene.
Yeah.
No
right. Honorable mentions for yourself?
Honorable mentions, Order 66. Just all of Order 66 in every format that it's in. I think it's just like heartbreaking but brilliant. It was the Praetorian Guard fight, I think, was phenomenal. And oh god, there was another one that was on the tip of my tongue, but it's gone out of my head. Oh yeah, really little random one. E.T. being in episode 1.
Yeah.
Just I don't know why that has stuck with me forever. I just when I noticed that in the cinema as a kid, and I was like, oh.
It's just the beautiful thing about that is it made sense as to why E.T. recognized Yoda in the Halloween costume in E.T. And it was just kind of retcon the whole thing. So yeah.
But then
cool.
Snaggletooth was an action figure. What the hell? I'll just say that's my honorable mentions because unfortunately for Matt Damon, we're running out of time.
I think we might all have the same number one because nobody's mentioned it.
I don't think we do because I think mine is going to be a bit surprising.
I'm about to say, I don't think you're going to say the same thing I've got.
Okay, I'm surprised that neither of you have mentioned my number one then. So my number one
Ash,
Star Wars moment.
Number one? Are you going?
Shall I go
for
it?
Yeah, go for it. No, go for it. Go.
Duel of the Fates. That fight scene between Obi-Wan, Qui-Gon, and Maul. Just when I think of Star Wars,
did we not mention it earlier?
No.
Oh, right. That's why it wasn't in my honorable mentions. I thought we'd already covered it.
Yeah. No, that to me is my number one. Just because when I think of Star Wars, that's the silhouette I see. The three of those, that fight scene, and because it was the new films, lightsaber duels, lightsaber fights in the original trilogy aren't that great. Let's be honest. They're not that well choreographed. They're a little bit clumsy. And then you saw this beautifully choreographed, the dual lightsaber, that scene where he's it was like, oh, he's got one that comes out both ends. It was just the more everything about that, from the music, the choreography, the double-ended lightsaber, the choreography. Yeah, just Duel of the Fates to me is the best Star Wars scene for me.
Ryan, what about you?
Oh, I'm going. Okay, right. I can demonstrate mine very clearly. So, as a kid, this is the thing that made me love Star Wars instantly, right? Is when we go into a little bar and suddenly that whole cantina scene is my number one. Because when I was a kid and I'd seen, obviously, A New Hope for the first time, you have the droids in the corridor, it's all clean and white and new. And then we get down to Tatooine and there's all the droids and, this is really cool. And the Jawas are kind of unusual. And then we go into Mos Eisley Cantina, and then suddenly there was just like all these different aliens and things, and it's all lived in. It's dirty. There's a guy that's like a wolf with glowing red eyes. There's a guy with a triangle head. One of them's like a slug with teeth. The other one's got like a little mouse thing. One of them's a giant bear. Then you got like Chewbacca's there, and like he's coming in, and he's like a giant bear as well. Then there's like old men, and then there's a guy with a walrus for a face, and then the guy who's really cool. They think that's a kind of cool cowboy kind of character. Shoots a fish guy in the face and sets him on fire. You know, like you tell me that as a kid that isn't just freaking mind blowing.
Yeah,
Like
okay.
I just, it ramped up so much as a kid. I remember genuinely being like, you know, when you just can't almost process how much you're like enjoying something, and there's just so much to look at that you want to instantly rewind it and look at everything in the detail in the background. And that is why the Cantina is my number one Star Wars moment, which is appropriate for the HasLab.
Yeah. So
mine, as you guys know, like I'm massively into Star Wars as a kid and stuff, but I kind of not grew out of it, but I kind of like forgot about Star Wars, if you will, as I got older. And then I had Paige and Rebels came out. And for me, my favorite Star Wars moment of all time, because it was the moment that drew me back in as a massive Star Wars fan, was where Ezra gets his kyber crystal, and that whole conversation with like the whole thing with Yoda in the Jedi Temple, and like Yoda speaking to him, and like it's Yoda for like it's so cool because it's still Frank Oz's voice, and that moment of like Ezra saying he needs a lightsaber because he needs to protect people. Like, oh, punish people you will? Like, no, protect them I will. Like that whole scene of like that whole moment where he's like Yoda's basically feeling him out and seeing if he's worthy of the light of the crystal, and the little green kyber crystal falls into his hand. And I love that scene so much.
Yeah,
that to me was like when I got back into Star Wars. We've kind of discussed it before, but like as a dad, like Kanan, I felt a lot towards the character of Kanan and Ezra, like of like you've been trusted with like raising the next younglings, and that's kind of how it felt as a Star Wars dad, if you will. Someone who, you know what I mean? Like I love that whole concept.
That's awesome. You know what this has really highlighted for me is how amazing Star Wars is as a franchise, because we've had essentially 30 moments between the three of us. Only a couple of them have overlapped. None of them have been in the same order, and each one of us has got a completely different top moment from a different completely different franchise or set of things. Like Ryan's from the original trilogy, mine from the prequels, yours from the Rebels, the animation. But yet what makes Star Wars to us is completely different to the next person, and I think that is something that I think a lot of people online and a lot of fans and a lot of groups and comments and all this kind of stuff are forgetting as we get this new media out. You know, Acolyte episode 3, so much hate towards it, but that might be somebody's favorite Star Wars moment in 20 years time, you know, and who are we to say it won't be? Like,
everyone has their own James Bond and everyone has their own Star Wars.
Yeah.
It was
just quickly as well, the fact that as much as people always do this thing of like, because everyone's mentioning it in the minute because of Acolyte and stuff, as much as people look at Disney and go, you are the enemy, you are the thing that ruined Star Wars, until you've been to Galaxy's Edge and seen what like the love that went into that and what they've done with it, until you've been there and experienced it, you cannot say that Disney tried to kill the franchise, because Disney have just tried to make the franchise better.
Yeah,
they've only tried to plus it, and
just brilliant. Just I completely agree. We have gone a little bit over tonight, so I do apologize, but we will very, very quickly just throw out a couple of people here in the comments what we've not caught up with. SMD said Cad Bane is a great character, keeping his backstory secret helps keep the mystery. JB1 saying Luke bodied the Dark Troopers while the heroes of the series, as in Mandalorian, hid on the bridge. Very, very true. Let's have a look. Triple G's here as well. Was here. Evening all. That's fantastic. And very, very quickly, Bioshock Gamer with a closing comment here. I've never watched podcasts, but this one is good. Appreciate that, Bioshock Gamer. We do. Ryan, it's been awesome having you back on this week.
It's been really nice to be back, guys. Thank you.
Really fun having you back on. If you're watching us on Catch Up, Sora, what do they need to put in the comments?
Hashtag Catch Up Crew.
Hashtag Catch Up Crew. If you are not a follower of Ryan, do go and check out his channels. Does some really cool stuff. Just done a giveaway, didn't you, for the next 17? So keep your eye on Ryan's channels for similar content. Yeah, it's been great having you back, dude. Brilliant. Thanks very much for tuning in, everybody. We'll let you go. This was our top 10 Star Wars moments. We won't waste too much time talking about what we're going to do next week, but is it One Good Scare next week?
Yeah, nah, I got it wrong. It was meant, like, I don't know. No, I said it was this week, but it's next week. We'll be talking horror with One Good Scare with Triple G and them guys over there. I'm looking forward to it. It should be fun. We'll be talking all things Summerween and spooky Halloween summery fun.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, everyone, for watching. Of course, do all those like, share, subscribes, and all those things. Do check out everybody's channel that's involved. Until next week, keep it geek.
Keep it geek.
Thanks for watching. Please like, share, and of course subscribe. Tune in next week for another live show. Until then, keep it geek. www.geekweekinreview.co.uk